What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Good or Bad. In case you don't know what Good or Bad is where I invite somebody on here to debate me on whether or not a film is actually going to be good or bad. We will have one person defending their case on all the positive aspects of the movie, and then the other person will share their half on embracing the negative side of the film. Today's movie that we're going to be talking about is a pretty big one. It's Man of Steel. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 56% from critics and a 75% from audiences. On IMDb, it has a 7.0 out of 10. On Metacritic, it has a 55% Metascore and a 7.5 out of 10 on the user score. And on Letterboxd, it has a 2.9 out of 5 stars. When this movie came out, it was split down the middle. However, people started to actually like this movie and appreciate it more as time goes on. They would even go down and say it's actually the best film in the DC Extended Universe. Which is why I kind of want to make this video a little different than what I have done with the past other couple of videos that I did for the series. I usually give out my special guests and let them do their defense case first, and then I would do my defense case on how I feel about the movie. But since this movie has gotten a lot more love and a lot more critics are actually starting to see more appreciation to the film, I kind of don't want to take that away, so I'm going to give out my defense on why I think the movie is actually a bad film, and then I would let the video end on a positive note where I let my special guest have his defense on why he thinks it's actually a really good movie. So with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and give you my defense case on why I think Man of Steel is actually a bad movie. Sorry guys, but I don't like Man of Steel. I can see this movie having potential, and I like some of the idea of what it has in here, and there's some good stuff in it, but the movie as a whole, its execution, and the choices that it made, I just thought were not good at all. And my first reason on why I think that this movie is not good is because of its overabundance of subplots. Now, the storylines that they have, I don't mind, and they can make a pretty good movie. But when you have so many of them crammed up together, and you're trying to execute them all in one movie, it feels like that they're just skimming over some important stuff, and it feels like that certain scenes are being rushed and executed really quick in order to have the next scene happen because they're focusing on not just one storyline, but another one, and another one, and another one. Like Lois Lane and the newspaper company, Clark Kent and him growing up. There's also Jor-El and Zod and everything that's going on Krypton falling apart, Superman being involved with the military, and Superman trying to figure out what is the right thing to do. There are so many things that the movie is trying to have us focus on that it feels like it would have been better if they split all of those things into two different movies. That way, we can actually have a lot more attention to detail with Superman's character arc, and the epic storyline that is behind Superman and Krypton would have been saved for a second movie, and it would have worked. But because it's all crammed up into one big movie, its execution is really flawed. Reason number 2, bad writing and bad directing. Now, I don't think Zack Snyder is a bad director. He has made good movies, and he has made movies where he knows how to be a visionary master art in filmmaking. But for some odd reason, his direction in Man of Steel feels like that he's holding back some of his talent, and his actual direction and dialogue in the film feels like it's all done wrong. Now, I don't have a problem with a Superman movie wanting to be a little more serious or being a little more somber. I'm fine with that. It's new and something interesting to go into. But what I am bothered by is that this movie thinks it needs to be in that exact same monotone-like theme throughout the entirety of the film. Okay, maybe some characters wouldn't necessarily have like a happy moment, but the reactions are all the same. To me, that doesn't make the film interesting. It kind of makes it dull. For the writing, every single time a scene cuts to that person, the way that they're talking is used in nothing but exposition. And the reason why using so much exposition in a film bothers me is because it takes out the realism that the movie is trying to convey out the window. Now, I'm not saying that exposition is used bad. It can be used effectively if it's done right, and only used it at the appropriate moments. In the Dark Knight trilogy, they used a lot of exposition in the film, but Christopher Nolan didn't want that to be the forefront of the movie. The most important thing that he wanted us to take away from the Dark Knight trilogy is the experience and the journey that we're witnessing in the character of Bruce Wayne. He used the exposition as a spice to emphasize the actual journey that we've experienced and why that journey is very important. Man of Steel just wants to sound important, look important, and make them feel like they're important. And when you're doing that, you kind of feel phony and also pretentious. Reason number 3, not enough character interactions. This actually ties into what I was talking about with the first reason that I said where there were too many subplots. Some of the things that they skimmed over were some of the chemistry and bonds that our characters needed to do in the movie. Now, I know that this movie is trying to be more story heavy, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine if a Superman movie wants to have more story. But if you are going to do a Man of Steel movie and want to be a psychological analysis of what's going on through the character's story arc, Superman or Clark Kent should have interactions with the people that he is around with, not having a moment where they're preaching or giving a lecture or just doing constant exposition. We need to have moments where Clark Kent and Papa Kent are having a father and son moment. And even for the plot, we need to have some kind of emotional bond between Zod and Jor-El. We need to have moments with Clark Kent and Lana Lane interacting with each other. And a big missed opportunity is Clark Kent interacting with a bully who used to bully him in high school. Everything that was going on in that story arc really did tie into the theme of what the movie was talking about, and they never took advantage of it. Even if you weren't making a film about Superman, even some type of chemistry or some type of bonding where they aren't necessarily doing a lot of exposition is still needed in a movie that is trying to be this much of an epic. And my final reason on why I say that this movie is not good are the action scenes. And I know I'm going to get some hate for what I'm talking about here, but I do have some reasons. I do understand when two large superhuman people fight in a city, buildings will be destroyed, people's lives will be lost, there's going to be some property damages. That is going to happen in a superhero movie, and I'm fine with that. My problem when it comes to the action scenes is that when you look at it in a visual representative, it feels hollow and empty. Snyder's visions can be masterful and amazing to look at. There are a couple of moments where I did feel like he nailed it correctly. The moment when Superman was flying for the very first time, everything that was within that moment was perfect. It's a fantastic scene, but that moment is nothing like that whenever you're watching the action scenes throughout the entirety of the movie. And it seems like that the idea that they're going for with the action scenes is that Superman is trying to stand up against Zod because he feels like that what he is doing is the best thing to do, even though there are probably consequences to the action that he is taking in. But when you compare both of the first flying scene and all of the action scenes that are in the film, and how the moral message behind both of those scenes translate to a visual representation of how the actor is acting, how the scenery looks like, there is a clear difference here and there. Every time I am looking at the action sequences, all I am seeing are glasses shattering, buildings falling down, fireballs imploding, and two people punching each other without any other kind of fantastic visual representation that makes me feel like I am watching something that is signifying that Superman is doing something important, meaningful, and it should look iconic. I don't mind action scenes in a Superman movie, but if you're doing it, you need to make it look like that it's meaningful and not make it look like where it seems like you're just doing action scenes because it gives us a thrill ride. And that is my full defense case on why I think Man of Steel is actually a bad movie. But it doesn't have to end this way. Now we're gonna head over to my good friend Durban from Durbania, who would do a great defense on why he thinks that Man of Steel is actually a really good movie, just so that we can end this video on a positive note. This guy is such a huge fan of this movie, probably one of the biggest defenders of this film, and has so much dedicated passion to it that I had to invite him on here to do a good or bad. He even actually requested me to do a devil's advocate on why Man of Steel is actually a good movie, and I'm kind of considering doing it. But this video I definitely wanted to do with him, so with that being said, Durban, take it away, my man.
Thank you so much, Chandler, for inviting me on your channel and inviting me here to do one of my favorite things, which is defend Man of Steel. I love that movie. In fact, the first video on my channel was defending Man of Steel. So come on over to Durbania. I would love to have you come check out my channel. I do movie reviews and ranking videos, trailer reactions. The most unique thing I do is a theological review where I love to find godly and biblical themes in movies and talk about that with you. So come on over and join the conversation. Right now, here are my top 4 reasons why Man of Steel is a great movie. Number 1, a great Superman. And I don't just mean Henry Cavill and his performance, which he gave a great performance as Superman. So that's a great Superman right there. But I'm talking about the fact that this is a modern Superman who fits our modern world. I think a lot of people didn't like the Batman Begins treatment with this character Superman, where he's a little bit darker, a little bit more gritty. But really what I found it is a bit more contemplative, because really what this Superman is trying to do is find his place in our world, in our modern world that is filled with fear and is completely divided, and humanity really doesn't have the best reputation with accepting what is different, and Clark Kent is 110% different, being an alien from another world with extraordinary powers. How does a being like that live in secret in our world? How does a being like that find his place in our world? And I liked his journey and discovering who he wants to be, and discovering his destiny, and discovering his calling. I loved Jonathan Kent, instilling in him those good values so that one day he'll be able to stand proud in front of mankind. And Jonathan didn't always do everything right. There's kind of this honest look at the fear that Jonathan has to overcome, which shows the fear that Clark has to overcome to be the joyful, inspirational hero that he ends up becoming. And then you have Jor-El. That burning bush moment where Jor-El gives him his destiny, his call to be a bridge between two worlds, and that one day humanity would join him in the sun. So Jor-El speaks into that destiny, and then at the end of this movie, you have Clark Kent and you have Superman, where the two identities are created. And so I love the buildup and the journey to what he becomes in our world. Number 2, a great Lois Lane. What I love about Amy Adams as Lois Lane is she figures out that Clark Kent is Superman before he even becomes Superman. I love it because it changes the dynamic of the relationship in a very good and very unique way. Throughout all kinds of television shows and movies, we have really seen that Clark Kent-Lois Lane dynamic. This movie was bold, and it took a different path where Lois, using her reporting skills, figured out Clark was a superpowered being, but was there for Clark. She didn't just splatter it on the front page. She saw what a good person he was and had his back. And so it changes their dynamic, and it gives this movie a unique take on that relationship that other interpretations don't have. Number 3, a great story. I love the story in Man of Steel because it really kicks off when Zod arrives. Now, the interesting thing about Krypton is the whole plot line where babies aren't born, they're grown. But they're grown because they are genetically created for a certain purpose. Zod's purpose as a military leader is the protection of Krypton. But they're born under this old nature and they're slaves to it, and they're not free to be anything more or anything better. Zod is not free. He's enslaved by his old nature. So when Krypton is destroyed, well, he's got to protect Krypton. Clark has the Codex in him, so he's got all of the DNA of Krypton in his blood. So he needs to kill Clark, he needs the Codex, and he needs to wipe out humanity and build Krypton anew on the foundations of the earth, because he's a slave to that nature. Clark is born under the new nature. He was a natural birth and he's free. So when Zod shows up, first it's like, yeah, let's have more Kryptonians and let's save Krypton. And so Clark realizes the Kryptonians aren't interested in sharing our world, and he's forced into making a difficult decision. The restoration of his home world are saving his adopted world, and he chooses to save his adopted world. And so to me, I love that whole storyline and that whole plot line as we get the origins of Superman standing up for the world that adopted him, even if it's a gritty, fearful, divided world. And number 4, great action. I love the Christopher Reeve Superman movie. It is majestic, it is powerful, but what I love about Man of Steel is it is majestic, it is powerful, it is a great origin, but then because you have Zod and multiple other Kryptonians, Superman is fully tested. He has to use the fullness of his abilities to defend the Earth, so we have tremendous action sequences where we see Clark have to use all of his powers and abilities. So For those top 4 reasons and many others, I think Man of Steel is a fantastic movie.
And that right there, guys, is Durban's defense case on why he thinks Man of Steel is actually a good movie. Be sure to go ahead and check out his YouTube channel. I'll put all of the links down in the description below. And be sure to subscribe to his channel if you have not. But anyway, what did you guys think of Man of Steel? Do you actually agree with what I say? Do you disagree with Durban or agree with them or disagree with me? Whose side are you on in this one? Put them down in the comment box below and let's start a conversation about it. And like this video if you agree with what I say, or dislike this video if you disagree with what I say. I don't mind the dislikes. So that is it I have for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be sure to see you in the next video.